mean, all the startups probably know about Y-Combinator, but can you just tell us like a few things about Y-Combinator, why it's important?
Sure. So Y-Combinator is an early stage fund. We put in $120K thousand dollars USD in exchange for around 7% of equity. And all the startups and founders go through a 3-month program that we run from January to March and also June to August. And during the 3-month program, we help them and mentor them on their startups, help them accelerate their growth. And at the very end, they go through a very famous demo day in which hundreds and hundreds of investors show up and they're able to raise money from that end. And then after the program, after the 3-month program is finished, YC isn't actually done. We help them through their many inflection points of a startup until they either don't make it or they actually succeed and they...
Now, what's the ratio? I think it's, you have a very strict qualifications, right, for to be selected as a Y-Combinator.
There's no threshold of any sorts to get selected. Every batch I do think that you need to have a pretty good idea and know how and communicate that idea. And it's always good to have actually started working on it. But beyond that, we have taken startups who have no users or no revenue to startups that have millions and millions of users, or even up to 40 million, 50 million in annual revenues.
So what kind of startups have you been accepting so far?
So we accept a range of startups, and it really just depends on who's working on what. So recently, some of the more popular, more frequent applications we see are in the field of AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and that seems to be on trend, trying to automate stuff and things like that. But we accept everything from consumer. We do a lot of B2B and SaaS software, enterprise, and we've also seen a lot more in healthcare and biotech recently.
Okay, that's good. And you also had a great startup, you know, Homejoy was really fantastic up to a point. So does it give you an edge over other kind of Y-Combinator competitors?
Yeah, so I think all the partners, at least the group partners, have run a startup before, and all of us had varying degrees of successes. But the major thing is we started from zero and grew something pretty big, and along the ways we recognize what worked and what didn't work, and so when we work with founders, we're able to help them in that sort of way.
Okay, that's great. So what about Middle East or this part of Europe? You know, do you see that Turkey or the countries neighboring Turkey can be the next kind of Silicon Valley, or can we have like a unicorn zone in these countries?
I think that what's most interesting to us at YC is finding founders and startups outside of Silicon Valley. And YC has always been something for outsiders, meaning, you know, like back in the day, it used to be, if you're an engineer, it was really hard for you to get funding. That was years ago when we started. But these days, it's a little bit easier if you're an engineer. In fact, it's one of almost, it's a good thing if you are.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if you live out in, you know, Turkey or Middle East, it's a little bit hard. It's much harder to get funding from somebody in Silicon Valley. And so we're doing a lot of outreach and trying to find the founders everywhere, because we believe that there are thousands and thousands of founders to fund, and they don't all live in Silicon Valley.
Well, what can a startup in Turkey do to apply to Y-Combinator?
I don't think there's any specific kind. I think it's interesting if you're working on local problems, because you're most familiar with them, but as well as global problems. And the startups and founders I've met here over the course of the past few years have worked on a range of things. So I don't think there's anything specific.
I mean, what I tried to ask was that how can they apply? Is it an online process, or
yes.
Do you have to be physically there?
No. So the great thing about YC is that you can apply online. It's apply.ycombinator.com. And you just fill out an application. And actually I tell a lot of founders, even if you don't hit the submit button, it's always good to fill out the application, because it really helps you put your business in perspective and what you're working on with a really good framework. But yeah, that's all you need to do. And once you apply 2 or 3 times a year, we review applications aggressively. And then if you get it, or if we accept your application, then we we fly you to San Francisco
Okay, that's
to do an interview, in-person interview. And then if that goes well, then we fund you so that you can actually physically move to San Francisco.
Is there any Turkish startups that Y-Combinator is founding?
Yes, there was one, at least one, maybe more. I actually met with the founder yesterday. He was building a AR type startup for showrooms so that you can view, you can go to a showroom and view different types of furniture and different types of objects in the showroom. So we found at least one, maybe more. I'm not actually,
Okay,
I don't know the exact numbers,
yeah.
but yes, it's more than zero.
Nice, that's wonderful. So what is your aim to when you join Startup Istanbul?
Meet founders for the most part. I think one of the best ways to learn about startups is not necessarily through an application process, but to get that in person, to meet people in person, so you can listen to what they're working on, and you can have an actual deep conversation about it. So that's my hope coming here. As is our hope anytime we do outreach. It's not very scalable,
Exactly.
but we do have some time right now to do that. And so
Is it your first time in Startup Istanbul, or have you joined before?
No, I was here last year, and I've been in Istanbul several other times. So
Okay, nice.
I like
so
the city.
you know the city and the country, right?
Yes, yes.
What do you think about that?
I love Istanbul. It has a lot of good history and a lot of really excited people and a lot of great founders. So.
Yeah. What about Startup Istanbul? Can you name 3 favorite things about that?
So it just started this year, but last year I remember doing office hours with a lot of companies, and that was fun, as well as the finals, in which we judged some of the top startups after the I forgot what it's called now, demo day or something like that.
Yeah, demo day.
Yeah.
It's called demo day.
And that was good fun to be able to talk with other investors about the startups. But in general, it's always about the conversations you have with other founders.
Okay. Well, what do you think that you are going to find, or what's your when you flew to Istanbul and see these startup? What is the feeling that you get from them? What kind of areas that they are working for, or what they should be working on?
Well, I never tell people what they should be working on in terms of the startup, because my preferences and my hobbies and things that excite me are different from everyone else. But I think one of the things that we're pretty good at YC is talking with founders and getting an understanding of where they are right now and where they think they can be, and then pushing them further and seeing no, it could be over here. But of course you start small. And so those are the conversations I like having.
Okay, and one last thing, you've seen lots of successful startups and failed ones as well.
Sure.
So what is the main thing? What does startup owners or startup workers should be very careful about?
Yeah, so I think some of the there are a lot of reasons why startups fail. I would say in the early stages, some of the common reasons are breakups, fights with co-founders, the co-founders just don't agree or are aligned. But also persistence and just keep going at it and not giving up. And I think it's really easy when week after week you're not able to get a user and you're just I can't, no more, let me just go get a job. And so being able to just push through that is very important. But that's for early stage startups. I think for later stage startups, having a good business model, trying to get your business model into a sustainable form, not having to acquire more, pay more for your users than they're actually valued, and focusing on a lot of those core business metrics is very important.
Okay, that's great.